Hello, hello. All right, let's do this. So, if you don't know me, you probably don't know that I'm a huge Bojack Horseman fan. Like, literally, one of the only things that got me through my divorce was being kind of engulfed in the world of Hollywood. It also taught me so much about the entertainment business, which I'm in, and obviously I'm like an XY level actor, right? Maybe I'm in the L's. Maybe I'm in the L's, right? If there's A, B, C list actor, I might be in the L's of acting. But yeah, Bojack taught me so much about life and this business. And apparently when I took these notes, I had like originally designed to do this video as, oh, I'll go by like each season of Bojack. And instead, I guess I just like took notes on the things that I wanted to talk about in Bojack, which might work better because you cover more ground that way. And so much of Bojack is so interconnected, like you have to watch all of the seasons in order to like truly understand everything that's going on, to feel the emotional roller coaster it is to be out in LA and I think to be a celebrity of Bojack's candor and level. You know, it's just a motherfucking ride, you know? So I'm really excited to dive in. I know Bojack is over. I like even didn't want to let it go either. Like, so I held on to this review a long time when I should have just done it at the finale. I think I ended up rewatching it though, because all my Bojack notes got destroyed. So anyway, here we go. I'm actually going to start off with the Bojack Christmas episode, because I don't know wherein it really falls into the timeline from memory. And then we can just kind of come back to seasons, were there 5, 6 seasons? I think there's 6 seasons. Maybe there's 7. I don't know how many seasons there are of Bojack. What kind of fan am I? You know, it's a Netflix show. I just kind of binged it, and I don't think I got introduced to Bojack until season 3. So anyway, Bojack Christmas we're going to start off with. So Todd, if you don't know who Todd is like the slacker friend that ends up kind of living off of Bojack. He's like supposed to represent millennials and, you know, has all these brilliant ideas, has all this genius and work ethic. It just takes a while for him to get started, and he gets distracted by things, and he has a bunch of zany shenanigans. Anyway, so Todd drank all of Bojack's beer, which is probably for the best, as Bojack is a severe alcoholic. It's not great. I think that's also why I loved this so much, because as a child of alcoholics, most of the alcoholic content is like, it's like so cheesy or so not what it's really like, or only the like worse severe cases. And I feel like Bojack does a good job of like coloring all the flavors of an alcoholic, because it's not just like abusive mean one. Like, alcoholics can be charming and they can be really fun when they're drinking, and you know, it's also a roller coaster. My parents are alcoholics. I have dated many an alcoholic. I have a lot of people in my family who are alcoholics, so yeah, it's tough. So basically, the Bojack Christmas episode is about an episode of Horsing Around where Sabrina, played by Sarah Lynn, has a Christmas wish, and, you know, Bojack has been raking in residuals for Horsing Around. And I'm so curious as how, even as like a union actor, I don't understand how residuals work, especially in the streaming case now. Like, is it about how many times it's played and what like percentage of the cut do you get? Or was it just like easier then? Is he just watching this all on cable, so that's automatic residuals? Do you only get residuals on cable, not on streaming? I'm just very confused, because I know that's a big part of how actors survive, is residuals, because if you don't get booked, you don't have any money coming in, and even to maintain the basic necessities of an acting career is very expensive. Rent alone in Los Angeles is very expensive. Then topple in headshots, taking care of yourself so that you look like your headshots, keeping physically fit or keeping in the shape that you are. Even if you are, you know, the classic plus size type, you have to maintain that weight, and that's not always easy, especially as a woman. So the orphans in Horsing Around have never had a Christmas. It's so sad. I mean, I think like the Christmas spirit of being together and family and just like this celebration of winter time and being cozy and eating. Oh, sorry if you hear my cat. He's very passionate about Christmas, I guess, as well. Like his dad that he claims is his dad, but it's really my boyfriend Luke. But anyway, I just like hate Santa Claus. I think Santa is like so gross and weird and like an excuse for pedophiles. Like sorry to like knock down Santa, and I'm doing a lot of Christmas specials on my Mouthy podcast because I want to talk so much about what Christmas is and has become in the like commercialization of Christmas. But it's so gross to me. It's like most days of the year, like, don't sit on a stranger's lap, and then it's like, it's Christmas time, we're gonna pay $25 for each kid to sit in the lap of this man we don't know and take a picture of it. And like, while I'm like glad, and I'm sure not all these Santas are pedophiles, and maybe some kids like it, I feel like most kids cry being around Santa, and that to me is about like either energy, or it's like kind of messed up to put this crying child on this like old man's lap that they don't want to be on. Like, what message is this sending? For what? For a picture? And like now, like, you can Photoshop your kid into a Santa picture if that's really important to you as suburban moms. But I don't know. It's just like so bizarre to me, and we like don't question it. And I'm like, I wonder if it's only an America thing where you take pictures with the child at Santa, or is that like worldwide? I don't know, but it freaks me out. So maybe it's best that they didn't have a Christmas. In this episode too, Bojack is still really mean to Todd, and like is talking about how like annoying Todd is and just like really ragging on him, which I don't understand how Todd takes that. But some boys are very interesting. Like they will like let the like alpha boy rag on them. I guess because it's like, oh, that I can enjoy his riches, what do I care? And maybe if I had rich friends, I would feel the same way. But this must be that if I was going to place this in the timeline, I have a feeling that it's probably before season 3, because Bojack does get nicer to Todd in the series. Okay, Bojack loves to watch Horsing Around reruns because he's like a bit of a narcissist, and I think it reminds him of like very good times. It also like technically puts money in his bank if he's watching his own show over and over. But Bojack usually doesn't want to watch the Christmas episodes, and Todd, very, very on the nose, asked if it's because of the themes of family and togetherness remind Bojack of his own isolation, which is probably true. I think that's sometimes why I don't like Christmas, because it forces me to reflect on how my family is not a typical family, that in many ways we are broken and will perhaps remain broken until all of us dies, and it's very sad, right? So I'm not a big Christmas person either, so I'm kind of really related to Bojack on that, and I don't necessarily think he's a Grinch because of it, because it's like so frowned upon to not like Christmas, and even the Grinch comes around. But anyway, this isn't the Grinch review, I have that coming soon. And so in this Horsing Around episode, as I was mentioning, Sabrina has never had Christmas, and she, of course, has like a wish for Santa, and it's to bring her parents back alive, which is like, uh-oh, not very possible. Sorry, my cat just threw up too. It's been a crazy time to do this. Bojack also interjects that he just doesn't like Christmas because it's a cash grab by greedy corporations, and people would rather watch a fake family on TV in Christmas instead of actually having conversations with their own families, which I do think is a little bit of truth in that, but I also feel like watching film, and that's like a big reason about why I talk about film, spurs conversations. It's also very interesting to me because I don't think we hear about it anywhere else in the flashbacks of Horsing Around, is that the Horsing Around character, so Bojack's character, the horse, is working at a law firm. So he's like a lawyer, which is so interesting given Bojack's criminal record throughout the rest of the series. And of course, there's like a hot secretary because, you know, it was a show of the times and that's all women could be. Although, honestly, secretaries get stuff done, and I don't mind women being secretaries. Some in Mad Men, the secretaries, I think were honestly the best parts and the most memorable parts of Mad Men for me. Mad Men reviews coming soon as well. But yeah, it's just very funny to me that he is a lawyer, and a good lawyer at that. He's the top earning lawyer at the firm. Unfortunately, the horse and horsing around, Bojack, is forced to come in on Christmas. That's what his boss is doing. And the boss kind of doesn't care that the horse wants to be home for Christmas and is orphans, because he's like, oh, Jacob's coming in for Christmas, and the horse is like, Jacob's Jewish, and they're like acting like they're all offensive. But also it's like, you know, probably didn't come in for his Jewish holiday, probably got that off, so it isn't really fair to make people work on the holidays if that is when they want to take their time off. Like, they have a right. It's such an interesting thing in work that I think has become very exploitive. It'll be like, oh, because there's a guaranteed amount of days that a worker can take off as paid vacation. And unless they've used up all their days, then of course they can't ask their boss off for more, even if it is a holiday. But if they choose to use those days for the holiday, that is within their workers' right. And their boss, the boss can ask them, but it can't force them or try to sabotage them in their job. But it is hard because it's like, if an employee doesn't stand up and be reliable when you are in a pinch as a company, what can you do, right? Who are you going to reward? You're going to reward those people that came in and worked harder. And that's why capitalism is just such a crazy, crazy game to me. Like, it's all about convenience and a little bit of selling your soul at times. And it's really, really rough. I've always felt that horsing around felt very Full House to me, especially, I guess, with like the 3 children. Even though they're not all 3 girls. It's like Full House with a little bit of a twist. But the Goober Go Home is such like a Kimmy Gibbler gender swap. And I love it. The horse tries to trick Sabrina that Goober is Santa. But she smells Goober's cologne and knows that it's not Santa and isn't buying it. She is smart. I wonder if that's also why kids cry, because they're like, this is not Santa, this is an old man actor. Then in present day with Bojack and Todd, they talk about how the actor playing Goober has molested a bunch of Laker girls. Todd says that, like, oh, Goober, I can't believe that Goober molested all these Laker girls. And then Bojack is like, it wasn't Goober who molested them, but the actor who was playing him, which is so funny. The humor in the show is like, it's dark, but it's so good. Oh, it taught me so much about comedy. So this is when Sabrina asks for her mommy and daddy back, because the horse is encouraging her to like think bigger, wish for whatever she wants. Because even in this narrative, the horse is rich, which I think that is kind of a mindset. Like, when you start playing a rich character, right, you'll start to become a rich person, which Bojack did. And Todd like sees that Bojack has like a heartbroken look on his face and acknowledges Bojack's talent, which is, Todd's like one of the only people that, I guess they do kind of talk about his talent very much, but it's never as much as Bojack wants, right? It's always about more than the talent. Welcome to the business, ladies and gentlemen. It's always about everything, and the talent is like down on the list. And that's something that you have to know, I feel like. That's something you have to be like, I'm talented, I'm always working on being more talented, and that's, you know, you can't always wait for people to say that for you or really mean it. Also, what do people know anyway? You know you're talented because you've put into the study and probably watched yourself as an actor and seen what you can do and either were impressed with yourself. You might, like, obviously if you have an ego problem, then you're not seeing things in their true form and you might think you're so good when you're not. But I know a couple people have like that, but I don't think there is much hope for them in any career, honestly. I think they would always think they're a good job, but most of the time with actors, like, you know what you need to work on, you know what you're good at, and I don't think there's any shame of having confidence. And like, there's no point of these artists needing to be insecure to feel like that's what it takes to be an artist. And it's like, no, I think you can be a confident artist. I think that's how you become a successful artist, is having more confidence and knowing that you do good work whether or not people like it. Because there's tons of stuff that we haven't seen because it isn't famous and easily accessible that is amazing art. And it's curious because Bojack seems to want to be alone on Christmas. Maybe because it's just easier than dealing with other people. I think even, I guess I've had like great Christmases with that weren't traditional, but it always is kind of sad. Even when other people are there, you still want the people that are like traditionally supposed to be there, and they're not. I also love that Todd thinks that the cop in Die Hard and Family Matters are the same cop and that those universes are connected. It's great. Also, what I thought was interesting in this episode was that he tries to chaperone the horse, tries to chaperone Olivia's prom as well, which is what kind of led him into a dark space with Penny. But more on that when I review the episodes, which is coming right after. So he tries to have a heart-to-heart with Sabrina, the horse, in horsing around, and says, hey, there are like some things that even Santa can't do. He can't bring your parents back. Or Sabrina just thinks that, oh, the horse is just saying that so that I'll be even more surprised when it happens. But then Olivia has a terrible, terrible suggestion as a big sister. And she's like, oh, let's trick Sabrina into acting bad so when her parents don't come back, she'll believe that it's her fault because Sabrina believes that, oh, she does good deeds that like translate into more presents from Santa. Then the horse ends up getting Sabrina a letter that she seems really excited about because it's from her parents, and she's like, wow, 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 and they're like, oh, did you love it? And she was like, well, how should I know? I can't read. And it's really, really funny. I laugh so hard. Anyway, it's this really sweet letter, but Sabrina's pissed because this is not what she asked for. So she hates Santa, and she hates Christmas, and she hates the horse from horsing around. And then I love this conversation so much about Santa because it's so interesting. I love that Sabrina thinks that we're just pawns in Santa's sick day and that Santa is perverted. Oh, so good. Because basically, Sabrina is like not understanding why Santa wouldn't want her to be happy, and she's done everything right, and she doesn't understand why it didn't work, which is honestly how I felt about God for a long time. And Sabrina is like, does Santa just make people miserable so that he enjoys it? Like, he gets off on other people's pain? And then Bojack as the horse explains to Sabrina that Santa isn't real, that it's a lie made up by grown-ups to get to kids to act good. And he says that Sabrina should still act good all the time. There's never really a reason why. And I think here's the reason why. You don't need a Santa Claus. You don't need any of this. Here's the reason why. Is because being good all the time helps other people, helps the world, builds a better society. Wouldn't we like to have a world where we could trust other people? So if you act good, you're only going to build that world. There you go. You can use that. Free of charge. Here it is for you. Would appreciate it if you donate though, because I need money. Pay me $10 for that actually. Go back and hit me up on Venmo and pay me the $10 for that piece of advice. And then Sabrina anyway comes around because she's like, oh, if my parents didn't die, I wouldn't be part of the horsing around family. So she's happy. And of course, Bojack as the horse calls his boss and is like, I'm not coming in on Christmas Day because he wants to spend it with his family. And the boss rewards him because it took guts to say that, and he offers him a promotion and a partnership. I wish it worked that way. I don't know if it works that way for women. Not in the Hallmark movies I have seen. And then there's like a twist on the horsing around episode that nobody wrote the letter from her parents and that it was Santa all along. And there's also apparently 8 other Christmas specials in the Horsing Around series. But honestly, there's a bunch of Christmas specials in Glee too, because they make a bunch of money from that Christmas music. Okay, and now that we've got the Christmas episode out of the way, let's dig into the rest of the Bojack series. Sorry I started with Christmas, I just don't like Christmas and it kind of interrupts the flow, so I thought we should just get it out of the way. And the ending is so powerful of Bojack, I wanted this video to also end on the season ending of Bojack and talking about that. So one of the first things I'd like to talk about is how Princess Caroline is dating essentially an abusive man-child in Bojack, but then also dates kind of this like another abusive man-child, which is what maybe Bojack sees because maybe Princess Caroline has a type of guys that are like that, these kind of like immature boys, because she's a motherer. She's very nurturing, so she's into people who haven't grown up to help them grow up because she kind of had to help her own self grow up. And so I always wonder that we're seeing Vincent adult man through Bojack's eyes, but are we seeing him as he is? Is this really Vincent adult man, or is this just how Bojack sees him, right? It's Bojack Horseman as the show. He's the titular character. We're seeing things through his perspective, and his perspective is not always reliable. He is an unreliable narrator. Also, I'm very confused. did Princess Caroline have sex with this child if this is real? Because if not, that's really messed up. I can understand that maybe she doesn't have sex because I don't think that's like, you know, Princess Caroline's big thing, and that's essentially all she was doing for years with Bojack was just like fucking him, and there was hardly any other date aspects to their relationship. I also am so confused as to what he is standing on to be so tall. Is it stilts? I feel like it's never revealed. Is there another child friend helping Vince, an adult man? I have so many questions. I also think that it is so messed up. Moving on, because I know we're gonna be all over the place in this. We're just talking about Bojack as a whole. There's so many other great YouTubers talking about Bojack season per season, so I'll leave you to that. I'm doing this whole gumbo of Bojack. But anyway, the fact that Bojack never even called Herb after all those years, after all of their friendship, or even returned his calls is extra messed up. But yeah, I was just heartbroken at when you see Bojack's history with Herb, the fact that he just totally ghosted him, essentially. Totally ghosted that friendship, and he is the reason for Bojack's success, all because he was gay. Like, it's just... It was really upsetting. I think that's one of the worst things Bojack has done. Maybe not the worst thing Bojack has done, but definitely probably in the top 5 for me. I also think it's so sad. In one of the episodes, we see how Todd's self-esteem is so fragile because where he goes into his imagination when he is this like cool guy, this person, and all of a sudden people are like respecting him more than when he's this klutzy Todd, and it all like shatters when Bojack tears apart even cool guy Todd. And it's like his self-esteem is so wrapped up in Bojack's opinion of him because Bojack is a powerful person, and I think Todd really values what Bojack has done for him, because even though Bojack is mean to Todd, he never like really does anything to kick Todd out, and I think kind of likes Todd being there in a way. And it's such a culture thing of like living in LA, Hollywood, right? I like physically live in Hollywood now, and that is like how life is. Everyone in this town is so self-absorbed, and it can make it bad, but also like most of these people are self-absorbed, like it only gets in their own way. Like they have their problems because they're self-absorbed, and they have these like scandals because of their own, that they can't like get out of their own head box. But I think that's like really why they call it La La Land, because you could just live in a different reality. You can just believe whatever you want to believe here, and you can surround yourself by a team of people if you're making money and just live however you want to live. Like there's a way that you can just like cut off anybody who says is a naysayer to you and keep going at this almost destructive rate, and you're rich and famous, so it doesn't really matter, and you will like, you have like an audience that like likes that attitude, that they like that. I think that's why those people have such big fan bases, is because their fans like that I don't give a fuck attitude, essentially. Like, oh, they're just gonna do them no matter what. And that's like when you're struggling with confidence issues, like it's a great way to overcome them. Like for example, I would put on like kind of Rachel from Glee, and Leah Michele is now, you know, outed to be not the best person ever. But I would put on Rachel from Glee's thing and, you know, like really channel that confidence of her, and that made me be more confident in having that sort of character. So I get why people lavish over these really self-absorbed celebrities, and also that attitude, like it does work somehow in the way the system is. It's like you don't have to care about others to succeed in our system. That's the hard thing. You should, because it makes the system fair for everyone. But most people don't. And it's really sad. And it's very interesting to me. Bojack's charisma gets him out of so much. And he comes off as so generous because he's like donated all of this money to an orphanage, and he pays for people. It was kind of like an afterthought. He didn't really put like a lot of intention behind it. It was mainly Princess Caroline did all the details for the orphanage. And what's strange about it though is he like goes and helps all of these kids, probably understanding what it was like to kind of, I really related with Bojack's childhood, because it's like he's not an orphan, but he might as well have been, because his parents were so unloving and not there. It's almost worse to be raised by your parents as monsters rather than to have those monsters be dead. Like as awful as it is, it's hard. But Bojack, while he helped these children, he's also very verbally abusive to young women. And he keeps on hitting on women even after he's rejected, which we have seen in so many celebrities. Hello, Thomas Middleditch. It was so disappointing. He's so talented and was so nice in Silicon Valley, but I can see it. I can also see it. Anyway, he's like fetishized young women, which I find a lot of bigger Hollywood stars do and a lot of men in Hollywood tend to do. I have pretty much dated a bunch of older men, very few people my age when I was in the dating scene in LA. Because Wanda, while she's Bojack's age, she was a stunted 20 because of her coma. Diane was 34, but she acted like a 20-year-old in many ways. And that's the thing, is like he's dating these women who are like younger or it's like where he stopped maturing in his own process, which was like when he got famous. And I think when probably a lot of his alcohol abuse started, which is what they say about alcohol abuse, is that whenever it first started, that's kind of the age you stop maturing at. Then another crazy thing about Bojack is like he's in the car with Wanda in this one episode and they hit this deer. And how many other times has he hit people and just like done a hit and run before? And there's a bunch of famous celebrities. One is running for governor right now that have hit and run people and not been in trouble. And I will say that like the LA, I don't drive in LA because I'm blind in my left eye. I technically have a driver's license, so I am capable of driving in Texas at least. But in LA, it was really hard. And I was like, I don't feel like I can drive safely enough to not accidentally hurt somebody. That would be like the worst thing. And that is something that I think people need to realize with car safety, is like you are driving a vehicle that can kill people. So you need to make sure that you're paying attention. I have no patience for people who text and drive. You have voice to text. There's no need to be sending paragraphs. Anything can wait. Anything is, to say that your text is more important than a human's life, like really think about that. Really, really think about that. Not to get all preachy, but dang y'all, I've seen so many people driving so recklessly and dangerously just because they were texting, and I can't. I hate it. Just don't do it. There's no excuse. And, oh my gosh. And then that one guy who was into the asphyxiation, where he tries to like hang himself. He's like a co-star on the movie that Bojack ends up being in, Secretariat. And he like has to hang himself to come. It's just like, it's crazy. It's crazy that some people will get so like stuck in the sex life and stuck in this like sexual addiction that it becomes harder and harder for them to just come naturally, you know, like where you've got to do this like crazy thing to have an orgasm. That's insane. Like that is wild. I definitely feel like as a rape victim, it's definitely like, because of the trauma, it takes a certain aspect for me to be able to orgasm. But some people, you know what I mean? Like to where you have to die to come because the relief of death is what makes your mind relax enough. Oh my goodness, I couldn't. I'm also very passionate about Bojack hating Honeydew. Everybody agrees with Bojack and says that Cantaloupe is superior, and I just want to say, how dare all of you. I love Honeydew. I'm more disappointed when there's Cantaloupe. I can't believe that there is so much Honeydew hate, and that is why people are mean and bitter, because you don't like Honeydew. Because it has the sweetest name. Cantaloupe, that is the most like, if you like Cantaloupe, I automatically assume that you have commitment issues. Because literally the name is Cantaloupe. And Honeydew is like, honey, I do. So fix yourselves. Become close to people. That's what the world is about. It's so much more fun that way. And then Bojack is also one of the worst kind of actors, where he will drag out being on set days just to avoid going home to have conversations with like Wanda at the time, is where the one episode focuses on it. But it's just like, dude, you know what I mean? Like that's wasting so much dollars and money and time just because it's just selfish. It's just another example of his selfishness. And I mean, like, look who raised him. And it is very interesting because I think with the erotic asphyxiation guy, who was also a Christian, which I always think is very funny. It's like these Christian people sometimes have no awareness of their own sins. Like, it's like different, but it's like, oh, I'm going to church, that's more than most people, so I'm automatically saved. And even if I'm not applying what church came to me, I'm going to church, so that means that I'm trying. And like the way that I was raised as a Christian was like, essentially, yeah, nothing you do will ever be good enough for God. So And he'll have to decide if he thought it was good enough or not. And most of the people, he didn't think it was good enough. So the God that I was raised Christian of is very selective. So not everything's going to cut it, you guys. But it's interesting. Like, could Bojack have saved that guy with erotic asphyxiation? I mean, part of me is like, really, at some point, like, they have to save themselves. But he, like, instead, Bojack kind of encourages him and gets him talking about it again and trying to get these good ideas, because Bojack is like doing this in a weird manipulative behavior. It's like very abusive what he does to Wanda with this erotic asphyxiation, like tries to like use this extreme sex act to get her to not focus on the fact that he said that he loved her, like clearly has commitment issues. And it's just hard because he opened up that conversation with the erotic asphyxiation guy who's trying to quit and then ended up killing him. So honestly, yeah, I do think that Bojack is responsible for his life because, he kind of opened up the gate again about something he wasn't even passionate about. Like, he totally ignored the signs that this was this co-star struggle and just kind of fed into it, which I think a lot of addicts do, unfortunately. And it's so abusive what Bojack does with Wanda and this erotic asphyxiation, because he tries to essentially uses suicide to threaten Wanda, to basically try to get her to convince her love, which is just like, no. Also, and this is the thing that bugs me about a lot of like suicidal things, because as a suicidal person, I've never said that I was suicidal. Like, yes, when you're suicidal, you need to be reminded that you are loved, because it can make you suicidal to not be loved. Like, that is the hierarchy of needs. You need love and support. Sorry, that's just what being human is. You need it to be alive. You need love. You can't make yourself not need love. You need it. It's science. It's in there. It's, that's what life is. So I get that. But I don't think, I don't really know a lot of suicidal people I don't really know a lot of suicidal people in general, because people don't talk about it, but I don't know a lot that would try to use suicide to get someone to confess their love for the first time. Because then if you do that too as a suicidal person, and the way that my mean voice in my head works is like, oh, they just said that because they didn't want you to kill yourself, right? They don't really love you, right? Nobody wants somebody's first time to be said because they were about to kill themselves, and that be like the first time you said I love you, because it doesn't feel real. Like, there's so much a way more healthy way, and him trying to do that is just, it's so disgustingly abusive. And he even is abusive beforehand, because he goes after the KBG agent who also was in a coma, who was bonding with Wanda because they had a shared trauma experience. And because Bojack is so insecure, he tries to sabotage that relationship of friendship, which would have been really healing for her. But that's the thing, is like, Bojack doesn't want any of the people around him to be better, so he can still stay sick, essentially. And it's such a hard environment to get out of when you are around an abusive person like that, because they are going to keep trying to do anything they can to make you ill. And when you're ill, it's a lot harder to change your life, because the hierarchy of needs, you need to be healthy, right? I also think it's very interesting when Diane leads this like feminist movement, Me Too movement, but she's not a rape victim. And I wonder if she should lead it. She's a woman, so she has a stake in the conversation. But it's also like, I guess it's a really good empathy battle. It takes some of the strain away from like rape victims, because honestly, as a rape victim, I am almost 100% all the time exhausted. Like, it is hard to continue life being a rape victim, because there's so much like of yourself that comes into living every day, like, because it changes your life in a way of like what you value, and because it takes your choice away. And once you know what your freedom is, once you know what it's like to have your freedom completely stripped away and to be buried by this like man monster thing, and still have to live in a world where men can still rape you and men are also equally lovable, it's a tough thing. So I kind of appreciate Diane stepping up for people who were sexually assaulted and raped, because I think we need more people to support them and be there for them and fight their battles, because it is like, a mental illness alone is draining, and that is a physical trauma as well as a mental trauma, being raped, and it needs space, love, and support. One of my favorite episodes is what do they know? Do they know things? Let's find out. And the Daniel Radcliffe burn, all that whole episode, oh, it's so funny and amazing. I think it's like one of the best comedic episodes I've ever seen. And it's so hard too, because so they start this Me Too conversation with Diane, right? And then Bojack avoids essentially being Me Too'd and kind of gets promoted to being this like feminist. And it's so like frustrating, right? Because Bojack is a person who has raped girls, who has disrespected girls, and becomes the like face of this movement. And it's so bizarre. Like, it's like, I don't understand what the media wants, because the media is what, at the end of the day, whoever is in charge of it, that they produce what gets out, you know? They could take the woman's stories, but I think it happens with media is that they're like, oh, this story is too raw, and there has to be this like balance between like raw and positivity sometimes. I think nowadays our news is a little bit darker, but we don't give media attention to rape victims. I think because it's such a hard truth. I mean, there's women in America being abducted for sex trades daily. Like, this is something that happens. It has not gone away. We are not years and years past this problem. Like, I hope that we will be one day. And I think part of it is like, in order to fix something bad, you have to pay attention to it. Like, that is the thing. And I know some people become bad because they are attention seeking, and like, I'm not urging that. But in order to fix the problem, you have to observe the problem, or else you won't know how to fix it. I love the improv as a cult introductory episode, because I actually ended up in my cult because of improv, which is very funny. But that is very, very real to cult things, just in the terms of like the group pressure and the like angriness when you leave, or the angriness when you kind of discover the like fraud of it all. Honestly, I feel like cults are all religion. Like, once I went through my cult experience, it changed how I viewed religion, because there's a lot of similarities, which is unfortunate. I just don't know really how they got past not being labeled as a cult. I guess like once you have enough people, it's not considered a cult anymore. But I think there's a lot of Scientologists, probably almost, I don't know, maybe enough as Christians. I have no idea the extent of Scientology, but it's crazy. Another terrible thing that Bojack has done is brought alcohol for kids. Feel free to arrest me, cops, I guess, unfortunately. But like, I bought alcohol when I was legal and my 18-year-old other college friends weren't. And I don't know if that was wrong. I was also like 22 I was drinking before the legal age. That's not good. You should follow the laws. There's nothing that exciting about drinking that it can't wait till 21. I would say that in hindsight. I obviously had alcoholic parents, so my relationship with alcohol was very different. It was because the way that my parents were functioning alcoholics as well. So it was just like, oh, whatever, you drink alcohol. Like, it was never this like big deal that it is to, I think, some families that are very religious and conservative when it comes to alcohol. But yeah, I always feel bad that I was like, was it wrong? Should I have been like, no, I'm not buying that because it's illegal and I don't want to get caught or in trouble and have you spin it back on me? And that was probably the most mature thing to do. But I mean, I didn't buy alcohol for like 16-year-olds like Bojack did. And I probably, in hindsight, I just would say, like, from learning from my mistakes, I would just advise, like, just follow the law. I think even when the laws are dumb and stupid, it's probably just better to follow them. And if you think they're dumb and stupid, then use that energy to change them so that you can do the thing that you want to do with no consequences. Because to me, I think the prison system is so awful, and they punish you for essentially even going through it. And this justice system is so corrupt, you don't know if you're ever going to have a fair trial. Like, it's just better to avoid stuff. But that's my opinion. And he even, like, shames Penny for not drinking when she's the designated driver. Like, that's so dangerous. And I guess it's because he's like trying to be cool to these 16-year-olds, but it's so weird. It's also like, I remember in my prom, they had like a rule, like you couldn't be over 21. And even then that's a bit fishy. Like, they wouldn't have their parents take them. Like, he's like 50 years old and taking a 16-year-old to the prom, and he's not her dad. Like, it's weird. Like, I guess there's like something of like, oh, taking the celebrity to the prom, but it's it's weird. Like, she should have just went with her friends or went with her dad if she wanted to. I mean, I still think it's a little weird. I mean, the dad moment is like, it's cute and it's like what they would do, and she probably wouldn't want to go with her dad, but... And she obviously was having like a crush on Bojack because he's like, you know, this older charismatic man, and obviously she probably has like, you know, maybe a little bit of daddy issues. It doesn't really seem why she should have daddy issues. Her dad seems fine from what I've seen of him in the episodes, but usually when you like somebody older, it is indicative of there is something. It might not even be daddy issues. It might just be like male presence, like you've been disappointed by males, and so if you've only been able to count on older guys because they have more of their stuff together, because we've allowed boys to be immature for so long, and when your only experience is that older guys treat you nice, well, then you're of course going to go with the older guy. So I don't ever want to label things just as daddy issues, because as a girl with daddy issues, that is very frustrating all the time. But the green balloons that they do, it's so cool. It's like aliens, which is perfect for New Mexico. Probably very bad for the environment. And then, of course, Penny puts the moves on Bojack. The legal age of consent is 17 in New Mexico. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I feel like honestly, I feel at 16, the way things are nowadays, and this is, if you are 16 and not having sex, do not rush into sex. I cannot stress that enough. Do not feel like pressured because everybody is doing it, and you're showing all of these TV shows where all these teenagers who are really adult actors doing sex scenes. Like, yeah, I don't think you should feel pressured into having to have sex. This is just, that's so dumb. Like, you should want to have sex whenever you want to have sex, no matter what age you are, and it shouldn't be weird. But I feel like sex became pretty normal around like 16. I definitely feel like I wanted to have sex at 16. I wanted to have sex younger, but I think that was more for societal pressures. But I will think hormonally and where I was in my body development as a woman, I wanted to fuck at 16, right? And so I think like maybe the age of consent should allow for that, but it is hard because then I feel like it's one of those things of like, should the prevention of pedophiles being able to attack our children and prey upon our children, should that enforce the laws, or should we allow freedom and punish the pedophiles, punish the abusive case? Because I mean, and I kind of think more of that, because I think making these laws and so that to try to like stop the bad guys, it like doesn't even work because people are still being molested by pedophiles, right? Like, it's like, I guess that makes them able to get in trouble more easily, which is important, right? And maybe if it's the legal age, you have a harder time punishing the person. But I also think that's like, court cases shouldn't be involved on like, I mean, I understand that the facts do matter, but there is something to be said for emotional trauma and the impact on that, and could it have been avoided? And it's such a hard thing. I don't know if there's a court case to solve all of that, right? But it's hard to deny that like the mental doesn't affect the physical, and that the mental doesn't inform the crime as well, whether things are legal or not. I mean, I guess you can't really send someone to jail for being mentally shitty unless they end up physically hurting somebody, which is interesting. Thankfully, until it's not, right? But thankfully, Bojack rejects Penny when he comes on to her, or when she comes on to him. And she cries, obviously, because she's rejected, and he was the only person that treated her like an adult. And then Bojack goes and just messes it up because he goes to kiss Penny's mom, Charlotte, who he's had a crush on forever and kind of idolized as like, oh, I should have went and like married her and settled and like not chased this fame because I'm lonely and alone. And it was just, I mean, it was so abusive for him to even kiss Charlotte in the first place, because she's clearly married. She clearly has a family. She's clearly like, she's taken, right? She's not available. And he just is like, okay, I'm going to do whatever I want. And he left the door open for Penny like he wanted to be caught. He did not close the door. Oh, and the music of Charlotte's discovery of this is so, I mean, it's so good. It's so creepy. I mean, I didn't like the way that Charlotte flipped out, but I also understand as a mom. And like, it's also like fucking weird to be like, okay, you get rejected by the mom and then you go prey on my daughter, like, because you can't take a no. Like, you're so mentally unstable and abusive that way that you're just going to try to get me any way you can have me. Like, it is messed up what Bojack did. And he deserves everything that came about it. I mean, I also didn't like always when Diane goes to like try to go find herself and go help be kind of a journalist for good, but is like just torn apart by the war zone, and she doesn't tell Mr. Peanut Butter about coming home. I can kind of understand why she didn't want to face up that she's like not as good of a person as she thought, or like not as strong as she thought yet. And I mean, I think it was really irresponsible and mature for her to not go back home and be honest with Mr. Peanut Butter, her husband. You know, that was just silly. Like, you know, it was, I don't know what she needed to pretend. And Mr. Peanut Butter too is like such the guy that like Diane could do no wrong. Like, he's just like really, you know, supportive of whatever she wants to do. And I guess Diane felt like she should be shamed for not being able to kind of fit this like ideal of a good person. And I think if Mr. Peanut Butter was going to go and say that it was okay that she came back home, she was going to feel like she was going to become like Bojack, and in a weird way then also did become like Bojack and like lazed around, did nothing to society and life, and just like was depressed and kind of used him and intruded on Bojack's life. And yeah, it was messed up. I also want to say, I'm jumping back to one of the first things of the episodes, because we did kind of touch on how like Bojack goes after unavailable women, which to me is abusive, because it's like, you know, and like if she wants you, she will reach out when she's available, right? So chasing unavailable women and putting them in these situations of like, try to choose me or your boyfriend, right? And it's like, she's already chosen her boyfriend. There is no you and her boyfriend. There is her and her boyfriend, right? And she will choose you when she is done, if she is done choosing the person that she's currently in love with. And you don't get to change that. But I do want to say that Bojack is like went after even Diane with Mr. Peanut Butter when she was unavailable, because he just believed that he was better than Mr. Peanut Butter, and didn't, even though I don't think that he might be more honest and a little more grounded than Mr. Peanut Butter. Mr. Peanut Butter is such like the LA optimistic, and I understand that like when you've gone through some stuff, sometimes that person isn't very helpful because they just don't think like that. Like, they think so positive that they can't listen to the negative, because that's what it takes to think that positive is consistency and positivity. I really do want to respect, talking on like the opposite, when Princess Caroline walks away from the cheating agent bunny. I loved that. I think more women should walk away from people who are like, they're never going to leave their wife, right? Like, let's just be honest. Because they're getting both. Why would they give up two women for one woman, right? Like, it's the less is more. And, you know, I don't think I could ever cheat because I would just be too guilt-ridden. But I can put myself in their shoes enough to understand, like, yeah, if no one has a problem with it, there will never be a problem. And I think, like, to me, I just always think about, like, the STD thing, right? So it's like, how long is it going to take till this guy decides, oh, I can sleep with 3 women at a time. I can sleep with 10 women. I can sleep with 5. I can sleep with 50, right? And then it's like, you never want your life to be gone because of somebody you were even casually caring about, right? Like, somebody you're not passionately in love with who isn't going to change. And like, I would even go as far to say is that somebody who passionately loves you, there's never going to be anybody else in the way. Like, they will love you. And if they love somebody else, if they're polyamorous, right, they'll be out front for that, and they won't lie and try to say, oh, I'm gonna leave this person, right? Like, they will be out front and be like, I love her, she knows about you, right? They would be living authentically and honestly. And it's gonna be really hard to love somebody if somebody isn't honest. Like, that honesty is a big proportion of love. You have to be honest even when you do things wrong. And you have to be honest because that is how I think to not be in an abusive relationship is to speak the truth. Because here's the truth, like, at any point they can leave you, right? And usually in love, they'll know that you're honest, and their honesty will make them not want to leave you because they'll know that you can be trusted. And that's such a hard thing to find in today's society. So Princess Caroline is just goals, honestly. I would love Princess Caroline's life in some aspect. I think I would obviously cut the abusive people away sooner. But another amazing thing, I love the like improv scene on the ship where when they are all fighting and it's like, oh, if you die in improv, you die in real life. Oh, it's amazing. Also, one of my favorite moments of the show is like when Bojack is running and he can't, oh, for that improv thing too, I always say, I was like, oh, if you die in improv, you die in real life, because of that scene. So if you see me saying that, I'm quoting Bojack and I'm living that scene because I think it would be so much fun. I would love to throw a party where we like improv laser tag, right? That would be so awesome. Donate so that I can fund an improv laser tag event. That would be amazing. I will totally throw that if you guys want it. But yeah, one of my favorite moments of the thing and of the whole entire series, and when I ever get sad, I like go back and look at it. Like, do these writers know that you've changed my life fundamentally, that you've brought me from the brink of so much depression, anger, and sadness with this just one beautiful, simplistic writing? So anyway, Bojack is having to lose weight for Secretariat. So he goes and starts running. Running is terrible. I am not a runner myself. I hate running. I don't really do it. I will power walk. I will walk fast. I will go on the elliptical. I'm just not a runner. I don't really like it. So Bojack like dies on the hill because running uphill too, with my hamstrings, no, God no. Anyway, so he's running up this hill and he like falls and he's breathing. And this like pro baboon monkey runner comes up to him and he's like, every day it gets easier. And Bojack's like, what? And he's like, but you got to do it every day. He's like, every day it gets a little bit easier, but you got to do it every day. And I think that's so true with like healthy habits, is like when you've been destructive for so long, and I think that destructive quality comes with so much mental self-hate. So breaking through that self-hate, I mean, that's like it's a physical transformation, that's a mental transformation, that's a spiritual transformation, and that's like a lot of energy. But the more that you choose the healthy option, the better that you will get day after day after day. Bojack also constantly will tell people that, especially if they're women, that like, oh, you ruined this. He's like very, very negative as a character. And he just like blames others. He never takes responsibility for his own actions. It's so hard too, because it's like in the show you get so sucked into Bojack's personality, but you also like, you can forget how terrible he is. And you can say like, oh, he's terrible, but he still has good intentions. And it's like, I think sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't. It's wild that he's like wrestling this demon. And apparently like too, his whole family was wrestling demons. And I don't know what it was about me. I guess I had family that wasn't wrestling as big of demons, or, I mean, everybody's wrestling their own faults to a degree. And I guess I had an example of my childhood of like, obviously my aunt, like she was very kind to others. My aunt also wrestles her own demons. She's a Leo. I think every Leo has a battle with ego. But I think every person has a battle with like ego, honestly. But I think too, I made a conscious decision to really not end up like my parents. And I think Bojack did too. And that he obviously chose like a different career path and like made a bunch of success and like has a bunch of control over his life, which his like mother did it, and he like went and fulfilled his dad, wanted this artistic success and career and never got it. So Bojack went and got it for himself. Like, he kind of just amended what his parents never did, but he didn't go and fix the mental stuff. And I guess for me, that was the most important thing. It was like, I mean, yes, I wanted to be, and I still want very much to be like a sitcom actor. I would love my own network show. I would love to do more commercials. I would love to make hundreds of thousands of dollars acting. And I still believe that's very possible for me one day. But for me, I mean, I didn't want to be a Bojack. I didn't want to be somebody who threw this all away because I didn't get my mental state under control. So I made very sure to put in the work, to not think the same as my family, to break the generational curse that was upon us, because it was like, somebody has to, right? What am I going to do? I'm going to have kids? Then, I mean, I'm not really planning on having kids. I'm ending my family line because personally my genes are not good and I would feel horribly guilty just passing these genes on to a child. I was like, maybe if I got rich from acting, I think I would adopt children and help them, because I understand what it is to just be a child stuck in a really terrible situation, and I would want to give somebody the best chance that they possibly can, because I believe that everybody deserves a good 18 plus years. And everybody should have the best life that they can possibly, because there's so much amazing things for this world to offer. And yeah, I want to be an instrument in that. And that to me was like, that was why it was so important to fix my mental health, because it's like, I want to be an instrument in that. I want to use the money that from acting to build a better world, because I know how heartbreaking it was when it sucks. Like, I wanted to kill myself. My childhood was so bad. I felt like that was the only way. I thought that it was over for me in childhood because, which is so far from the truth, by the way. If you're under 18 and listening to this, you have so much more of your life than in the teenage years. They make everything seem so important. And some things are. There are things that, because I wasn't properly taken care of, I am paying for it in my 20s, and it sucks. And it, you know, there should be parents that want to take care of their kids. There should be a community for when you know that a kid is not being taken care of well and you swoop in and help them. That should be something that you do, you know? And I hope to build a world where that gets easier. So there are less Bojacks. Man, that publicist that he has is a real piece of work. There's so much to say about her. I'll probably come back, but like, yeah, I don't know. She was just a cold person, which I feel like you have to be sometimes when you're up at the top working with all of that and campaigning like that. Because I think so many artists don't know how to self-promote because there's so much ego stuff. And it is like, I've noticed myself, it's like sometimes you just have to take the pressure off of it and just go for it and go for the money, because like nobody else, like that's the only way to get the money, is that like you have to go for it, and people aren't always going to hand it to you. Like you do have to fight for it. So like I understand her with that, but like I don't know if I would sleep with a client like that. I mean I personally would never do that, because that's like, I think that's way too dangerous. And allow Bojack to speak to her the way that it is. Like I think there is something to, and maybe, you know, if this is just my entitled iGen millennial person speaking, but I don't know, I think like you do have to say, you can't talk to me like this. This is a professional relationship, right? Because, I mean, I guess he's paying you money, but I don't know if there's a sum of money that's worth abuse to me. And I think if somebody is abusing people, maybe that money should not go to hiring people they can abuse, but should go to getting them help, right? I mean, if I think more rich people checked into mental hospitals would have the money to become better, right? I love Meow Meow Fuzzy Face. It literally reminds me of my boyfriend when he imitates his dad, who was a police officer. But shout out to Meow Meow Fuzzy Face. That's a great character. It was a great bit character. You were amazing. I also hated the like goober who has the family-friendly strip club, which is so messed up. I mean, I guess maybe it's not, because like, part of me is like, support strippers, right? If that's what somebody wants to do, if they want to dance to make a bunch of money, like, fuck it, right? Like if people are willing to pay them, and strip clubs can be like fun things. Like I support strippers. I don't know if strippers are essentially not family friendly. I mean, you don't want to like overexpose a child who's not ready to process sex, because I think every child's sexual development comes at its own time. Like it's very personal, especially if they have some sort of mental handicap or anything. Like, you know, you got to be careful of that. You don't want to like over-sexualize something or treat sex as like not a big deal. But also, like at strip clubs, there's not really sex going on. It's just like provocative dancing that I guess like can cause sexual arousal. Like I've been to a strip club and been turned on, and it's like, but I don't know. To me, there's really nothing wrong with being turned on, so maybe it could be family friendly. It's a very interesting concept. And even to me, I don't think nudity is essentially not family friendly. I mean, it all just depends on like the family's level of consent, right? Which can change at any time. And yeah, very interesting thing to think about. Because we just like demonize sex, and I don't think, obviously that's not helping the problem, right? I don't think casualizing sex is helping the problem either, but I don't think demonizing it helps anymore as well. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't love the fish episode. I know it's critically acclaimed, and that probably if I've been to Tokyo, maybe I would appreciate it more. But I don't love it. I don't love it. I do love, too, is like, I think that sometimes Bojack's assholeness, I will argue this, because Bojack he spends a lot of time practicing getting socializing perfect. And when you've had a damaging family who, like, kind of kept you isolated and you didn't get to learn how to be social when you were younger, like, it is hard. Like, I practice a lot of my social interactions, and I, like, stress out pretty much any time I've socially interacted with anybody, and go through like everything in my mind if I did it right, which is also, I think, part of being an abused child, right? You're always worried about being perfect, and did I say something that warrants abuse against me? It's pretty rough. But it is this thing that I've noticed sometimes it's like, just, when you're not great at socializing, when you're deficient, you're mentally slow. There is like I know people hate the word retardation, but that it means slow. And I'm not saying like call people retards. That's not nice at all. Don't do that. If somebody doesn't want to be called that word, don't use the R word, don't use the R word. But, if you didn't get those development skills, they are slow in real life, and you are missing years that some other people got, right? And I think that we need to have that frame of mind and focus. So Bojack essentially too, like he does it, for example, with Kelsey, the other director, trying to apologize for Secretariat and getting her fired. And he like over rehearses what he should say and write on the letter and tries to practice it. And I think because he tries to get it so right, it just ends up being messed up, because that's like social interactions is like the only way you can get good at it is in the moment. And there's always like a social interaction can always go wrong. That's like, I think part of the real legitimate fear of social anxiety. Communicating with people it's not easy. It's not always effortless, right? Like, because people are coming from all sorts of different backgrounds. So the way that you communicate with them, is affected by a myriad of things. And it's, it's not a simple thing, but I think he ends up being an asshole. And that might not just be because Bojack is an asshole himself. I think it's also just because I don't know if Bojack knows. I don't know if Bojack knows what he's supposed to say. He was raised by two assholes. So I definitely have realized, being raised by two assholes myself, that you say things and people are like, oh my God, that's so asshole-y. And you don't know, because that's what you were used to for so many years. Also, we never talked about, too, in that episode, how Bojack ruins a whole taffy factory with a kidnapped child. I mean, he returns the kidnapped child, but still. And even, I think one of the most interesting things, too, is like Bojack has all the success. He's surrounded by all these people. And still, I think due to his childhood trauma, he feels that he's always on the outside looking in and is never a part of it. And I often feel like that. Probably should fix that. I'm working on it. And it's very weird, because like when Bojack does return the seahorse child, he's like mad that the seahorse child doesn't, like, basically didn't get Stockholm syndrome and bond with him forever. And basically, so he's upset with this child that didn't like bond with him when he's reunited with his family. And he like is seeking validation from this like baby seahorse, right? Who just isn't even there developmentally to give Bojack that. And he's like all upset that the child meant like, that he meant like nothing to the child. And like, and to some extent too, it's like, you can't get that approval from the child. Like, this is what my like abusive stepdad would always do. It was like, oh, I didn't show my love that way, so that meant that I didn't love him or respect him or whatever. And it was like, you didn't ever, like, I don't know, like, I've never had a dad before. Like, I don't know how to show love appropriately. Like, I don't have any experience with a male role model. And also, you were abusive and a piece of shit. It was like, oh, you're supposed to love me because I'm your dad now. And it was like, I mean, like, you're not my real dad, right? And you, like, that's not really how, like, love works. Hi, step-parents, right? It's not just because, well, your mom decided to love them, so that means you love them too that way. Usually, too, they've had all of this secret time with you that they got to know and love you, and they, you know, you didn't get that time with that person to get to know them and, you know, find reasons to like about them. Like, I was never trying to be disrespectful to my stepdad by any means, but it was also, like, weird to be like, oh, you have to love this man now. And for me, love is such an intense thing. And it's like, I don't know this man, right? And I was also like a child of rape. Like, you know, I had childhood abuse sexually that I didn't even understand or know about. So I had this always like guarded sense around me, which has both protected me and hurt me. But yeah, it was weird that I think Bojack even demanded that of a child. Like, that's the thing I keep trying to talk to you guys about abusers. It's like, it's just, their demands are ridiculous, right? Like, and these people stay with them thinking that they're going to meet their demands. Like, I even look at myself and I'm like, what did I think I was doing? Like, what did I hope to get from this person? Like, they were never going to give me it. And I think I knew that. I think deep down I knew it. And I think there was like this weird sick thing of like, well, maybe this time I can get them. Like, there was this weird sick thing of like, I was trying to conquer the impossible, but what a waste, right? There was no money in that. There was nothing that was fruitful in survival for that. That if I conquered that impossible, I wasn't going to get my name in the Gettysburg. Like, I wasn't going to get any social credit with anybody. I guess only with this person, maybe. And it's impossible given the way that the abusive disease is. Also, I would like to talk about abusers being obsessed with vodka up the butt, because that's what Bojack was, and my one abusive ex was like loved the vodka up the butt situation. I think like as much as I like Marilyn Monroe, she's probably abusive too. She also had a vodka up the butt thing. I don't know what it is. Must trigger something for them. From my experience of taking vodka up the butt, if you wanted to know, hi. Very personal. But it was like a rush. I mean, to me, I don't really have an addictive personality, which is insane given that literally both my biological parents are drug users. Seriously, I think struggle with addiction stuff. I don't know if my dad does as much, so maybe it's different. My dad was mostly a dealer, but I mean, maybe he does. I don't really know him, you know? But yeah, it's just insane. There's so many other things that give me pleasure in life, that like looking at nature, right? Or having a really great conversation with a friend, or like crossing things off of the art that I want to do. Like that brings me so much joy. I guess I just like, that's the thing. I've just accepted that I don't get it. Like it just doesn't light my brain up the way that it does for others. And that's fine. I don't, it's not my battle to fight, but it is sad because I feel like I would want to understand it more, because I want to help those people. But the hardest thing is like that I've learned from Alcoholics Anonymous, like a child of Anon, essentially just like reading the books and watching all these YouTube videos, is like they basically like, you can't change a person. Like the person has to want to change. People tried to change me and I didn't even want to change until I decided I needed to change, right? I think too, I mean, I remember what people told me when they wanted to change, and it just all sounded mean, and I'm assuming people look at that too, and they didn't like look at people coming from them from a place of like love. And maybe like, sorry to any of my ex friends if that's like where you were coming from when you were trying to like get me to change, but also like could have been more specific and given details. Like if somebody wants to change, like I'm always there to try to help them, but at some point too, it's like the change that they have to make is on their own and they have to want to make it. And I think Bojack struggles with the wanting to make the change, because for him too, his life works out that way. I guess for me, I've never had my life work out, whether I was good or bad. I was like cursed because of all of these family generations of curses, but yeah, it's interesting. Also, I felt really bad for Bojack though at the end of that seahorse episode where he didn't realize that the helmet had translation, and he like even like forgets certain logic things, maybe because he's so messed up on drugs and stuff, like that you could write underwater and it wouldn't work because it's gonna get all like blurry. And Bojack is so dumb too, because I used to think too, like, oh, film festivals, they're so dumb, they don't do anything. And like some film festivals, probably a waste of your time and money, right? But they also do matter because it's like, it's one more bragging right. Like an award, no matter where it's from, is never going to hurt you, I also thought another interesting dynamic, because I think Mr. Peanut Butter, while very nice, is kind of an example of toxic positivity that goes on in LA, because he literally takes up the whole therapy session with Diane, because they're going to couples therapy after, he realizes that she lied to him for all of this time. And Diane, as an introvert, struggles to open up to a therapist. And so it takes her a little bit more time. And Mr. Peanut Butter too, I think that's kind of the problem of their relationship, is that Mr. Peanut Butter is always doing what Mr. Peanut Butter wants. And it's not always what Diane wants. And Diane kind of wants a guy who does a little bit of both, I think. And she feels like she doesn't have any power because she doesn't have as much money as Mr. Peanut Butter, I think too. And because Mr. Peanut Butter, like, is a relatively good person, right? He's got a fault, but he's not a terrible person. So I think she struggles saying what she needs because she feels like she should just be grateful for what she has. I also love the episode when she's trying to write her life story, and it is just like, it is, as somebody who is, most of my stuff is just emotional writing that I've tried to make good, it is like very taxing. It takes like so long for me to write something because so much of myself is in it. I'm trying to get better at being faster. When I'm not in it, it's like easy to write. Like when it's somebody else's story idea, I can write like effortlessly. But when it's like something to do with me personally, it's like, whoo, because it's a fine balance of like, what do I make fake? What do I make honest? Especially in poetry, right? What do I make metaphor? What do I make simile? What do I make here's the grain of truth that resides in the poem? It's a tricky thing. Yeah, I think this whole series is just all about the importance of communication. It's also interesting that Bojack doesn't even want to pay to see his own movie. Like, I think I would pay to see my own movie. That would be like the proudest over expensive movie ticket I'd ever spend. I'd be like, I absolutely will spend all the money. I'm getting a part of it anyway. It's going into the film. It's like, it's insane to me. It's one of those things of like, the rich are rich and still have all these money for these things. And if they're celebrity popular, they get stuff for free. So they don't need to spend their money. It's like a fucking circle. I also didn't appreciate Caroline's assistant Judah, who eventually takes 10% of ownership, so he's not really an assistant. But I never really understood, like, because it has happened, especially after I went into COVID, I've made like jokes and people have been like not understanding their jokes. And then too, when I was working on Bernie Sue's TikTok show, I would like see so many people who, it was clearly a funny video. You could tell that this was like made for entertainment and all of these people were taking it seriously. And so I never appreciated that like Judah is that person that like it just doesn't understand humor, right? Like there are so many people who, I guess that's a gift to understand humor. I've never really known life without it. So it's so interesting to think of like, wow, there's people who like, they don't understand what being funny is. Like, what's going on? But it's also weird. I mean, I guess when you have a personal assistant, you can kind of do that, right? Like, I mean, I took a course in personal assistance, so some stuff, I mean, it's personal for a reason. There's personal in the title, but it is interesting that Caroline makes Judah schedule her dates when she has a day off in her work. Bojack then does another abusive thing where he crashes this wedding in one episode, and ends up breaking up the wedding because he's like a celebrity, which to me, I'm like, if I was a celebrity, like if people wanted me to come speak at their wedding and pay money for me to be at the wedding, or if that like meant a lot to them and I had time because I had a lot of money as a celebrity and they wanted me at their wedding, heck, now if you even want me at your wedding, right? Like, I'll come to your wedding, right? But I'm not going to just show up unannounced at somebody's wedding. I guess too, like, Bojack has probably put no research into what it takes to have a wedding and that it's a lot of money. And I sometimes think that's like how actors are so successful is like they just focus on like essentially like one thing, and then it's hard when you're like another actor like slash a bunch of other things because it's like your interest is pulled into all of these things, so it like is easier to get ahead when you're focused, but also it's like I feel like you miss out on the world when you're not paying attention to a lot. It's such a hard grind. It's such a hard fine line to get. I did love Princess Caroline with Ralph the Mouse, even though in a way he is still an adult man-child in many ways as a like little rich boy. But I think that was like a really healthy relationship, and I honestly didn't really like the way that it ended. It kind of felt forced. I don't know why they didn't want her with Ralph. I guess it was because they knew the family thing was going to be too hard, and I guess with Princess Caroline, like, she really deserves to have a family that loves her with her own family troubles. And Bojack refuses to recognize his own power. He constantly defeats to being a victim. Like, he doesn't understand that, like, him having money and fame are things that a lot of people don't have. There's no gratitude in Bojack's character. And you get hit with that. He gets hit with that. Everybody loves you, but nobody likes you, which is, definitely, I think, the story of a lot of addicts' lives, which is rough. I also liked when Diane accidentally took drugs, even though it's not her, but I liked what she had to say on taking drugs, that drugs come from science. And drugs do. I think that's a big thing about like a lot of the anti-drug things. And I'm sorry if there's a lot of conservative people who are like, what? Legalize marijuana all over the United States? What's next? We're going to kill people in the streets because we've racially stereotyped that drugs will automatically lead to abuse. And I think, like, yes, there are some drugs, if taken improperly, can make you lose your mind. There are also some prescription drugs, if taken improperly, can make you lose your mind, right? Like, people's losing their mind is more to do with people. It's like the same saying to me, I feel like, with drugs as it is with guns. It's like, guns don't kill people, people kill people, right? Like, obviously, if you didn't know drug use or you didn't press upon like gun safety and that it was never okay to have access to the guns if you don't know what you're doing, right? Like, I just think education is the most important thing of all. And if you are just banning something, you're not understanding it. I never understood when they like banned books. It's like, God didn't make the world, if you are a Christian, God didn't make the world flawless. So he knew you were going to come in contact. Like, Adam and Eve came in contact with the snake, right? That was Satan, and told them to eat the apple. They ate the apple, and like, things changed, right? You're going to have like consequences, right? But Adam and Eve, they could have listened to God. They could have said no to not do it. I don't think that temptation is that strong. I think it's just that like God also, coming from, you know, somebody who's been like questioning, God did also give a lot of very good reasons. You just had to trust him, which to me is kind of abusive. Like, I feel like you deserve reasons. It shouldn't just be no explanation sometimes. I understand if there's no time for explanations, like in a doctor's ward, right? And it's like something is time sensitive. But when you can explain, you should explain. And, you know, Adam, you do things because you want to do them, essentially. And the reasons for want are maybe more complicated. I think just this, like, automatic ban, it's one of those, like, hard things. Is like, if it works for some people, should it be banned for everybody? If it works even for, like, a minority group, shouldn't they at least be qualified to have it? It's just, like, so many interesting things on a whole other rant. I'll probably get into more with, like, Breaking Bad on the drug scenes, because I'm still educating myself on drugs as well. Sorry to admit that I do illegal drugs. I don't think you should do illegal drugs. I don't really partake in illegal drugs anymore either, because I'm trying to be a role model. So I also feel like I definitely, like, I mean, it was my choice to partake, which is a big thing about addicts that and Bojack's kind of like victim abuse thing. It was my choice to take, right? Like, I could have said no. I will say, in my drug experience, I was scared to say no to the peer, like, there was peer pressure. People who, like, my age will be like, I didn't experience any peer pressure, and it was like, it's probably because you wanted to do what your peers wanted to do, and I have always felt myself not always wanting to do what the crowd wants to do, but being, like, too afraid to stand up because I was so scared of being bullied. So, yeah, I understand. Poor Diane, who I, like, so related to when she was, like, invited to go to hang out with these people, but they called, like, the wrong Diane. Like, she was, like, the geeky one. She wasn't the one that everybody wants to hang out with. So hard when you're yourself and people just don't like you because you're not what is idolized, essentially. I also love that Diane broke her arm trying to be romantic. Feels very me, even though I just did a fucking I did one of those, like, Instagram filter things of, like, which Bojack character are you, and I got Sarah Lynn, which I think in some ways is maybe real, but I wasn't a child actor, and I don't know. I hope to have Sarah Lynn's career without the death. That would be great. When I first watched the whole end of Bojack, I thought Caroline being with Judah was rushed. But the scene where he signs his own employee card, you can kind of tell that Caroline loves him, but she's not saying anything because he's her assistant, and so she's doing, like, what Bojack doesn't do. She's not blurring the lines. I wanted Mr. Peanut Butter to be silent when they were like, when him and Diane were like, okay, on 3 we'll say we want to do with this abortion. And I almost wish he was, like, silent, or at least one of them was silent. It is interesting that they didn't want to have a kid together. I guess it's like, it is a whole thing. It would have slowed down Mr. Peanut Butter's career. I don't think Diane was, and I think Diane knew she wasn't mentally ready for it, and not being mentally ready for a child can clearly fuck up children, giving Bojack and myself as an example. And Bojack admits that, which kind of sets us up for this, like, little teaser that ends up not really happening in season 4. But Bojack is like, oh, I hope, like, I've given a bunch of money to women to get abortions for my half, like, I've paid for it. And he's like, oh man, I hope all of those women got abortions and just didn't keep the money, which is like, although to me too, like, usually if you're gonna get an abortion, it's because you can't financially or mentally handle the child. So even if he pays for half of an abortion, if it's like $600, like $300, that's not a lot. I mean, $300 is like, you can do something with $300, right? Like, you can live on $300 for a week. Like, the $300 is no means, like, any money to, like, you know, gawk at, but it's not enough to, like, keep a family. So interesting. But, and then Diane, you know, is going through the emotional trauma of getting an abortion, and she, like, accidentally tweets, I'm getting an abortion, because she's doing, like, mindless social media in her job. She's just, like, trying to get through probably her day with what she has, because they found out she was pregnant when she broke her arm. And then they thankfully spin it because they're like, oh, this is a good forum to talk about it, because it's a lot of, you know, it's an issue that I think a lot of women struggle with present day, about what to do. And they, like, I guess when you have an abortion, they make you watch a video of it alone, which is weird that it has to be alone. I don't understand why another person can't be with you in the abortion. I guess I kind of understand with COVID now, but it is, like, the whole issue of this is, like, it is this woman's body. It is this woman's body. And if she wants emotional support, like, yes, you should see this video, right? You should have knowledge of what is going to happen and, you know, how you feel about that. And, you know, you should have multiple times to change your mind if you want to, because it is a human life. Like, I understand it's not just a group of cheek cells. It is cells that are going to be developed into a baby. Like, it is different. Like, I don't want to like sugarcoat and be like, this is a simple issue, because it is a living thing. It's just like, do you let the living thing into a system that is not good and try to have faith that it'll all work out, and it might not, right? And there's like so many other factors that I think are very personal. And obviously I don't believe that abortion should be used like birth control, right? We have so many other birth controls and options to, you know, not get pregnant, but things happen in people's life, and life is not the way it used to be, where it's like easy to raise a kid. I don't know if it's ever been easy to raise a child. And I think that is a big kicker, right? Like, it's not easy to raise a child, and they are also a human being. And it's not just like, can you sustain the pregnancy, right? It's also, can you sustain 18 plus years, right? Like, I mean, they're your child for life, and they're at least going to need your support for 18 years. So I believe that there's no reason that any person should have to watch an abortion video alone. They should have the emotional support there. I guess maybe they don't want people to feel like, if there's an abusive partner, having the like pressure, you know, to keep it and then stay in this abusive relationship, because now this guy's her dad. So I kind of understand that. But if she wants emotional support, like, emotional support is so valuable. She needs it. I love the baby killer number. It's so fun. It's so terrible, but it's great. So good. I also loved when it was like, they had all these male doctors who don't know about the female body, which I think it's very, very interesting. Having the diagnosis of PCOS, which is polycystic ovaries, I basically have cysts. They can be cancerous, but they're usually not. They just choke my ovaries, wreck my hormones, make me grow facial hair, and pretty much exist in this non-binary space, which I exist in. It's honestly hell. I hate having PCOS, but there's not much to be done with it, because doctors didn't value women for their bodies. So recently, nobody has really done a bunch of research on it. It's very new. I mean, and like, it's crazy to think about, but it was only like 1950s and 60s. And even to this day, some small town, you're putting women in mental hospitals because that's where we decided they belong, like, because they're hysterical, and when really it has so much to do with your cycle and your period, and it's literally insane. But anyway, I loved when the doctors didn't know, because I feel like that is unfortunately very true. And Diane is kind of beating herself up that she had kind of caved when she was standing up to Hank Hippopotamus about the Me Too movement, and his, like, I feel like he was supposed to be like a weird Jimmy Kimmel character, because apparently Jimmy Kimmel has like some of the reasons to be canceled and isn't. But anyway, she just has like regret that she didn't stand up when she had the Me Too movement, and like Mr. Peanut Butter obviously kind of discouraged her to standing up to it, because he was scared for his career, which was really selfish of him to do, because she was very passionate about it. And I think she had something, but I think she like kind of beats herself up for not being that good of a person. And then she went to kind of overcorrect it when she was going into kind of the war-torn countries. And it's hard. Yeah, I think she beats herself up because she feels like she had a chance to make a difference and then let herself be talked out of it by Mr. Peanut Butter, which was like not, I think, okay for Mr. Peanut Butter to put her in that situation and not understand the value of it. I think in that way, that's like where Mr. Peanut Butter was abusive, because it was all about like him and not about what it meant to her and for others. And she probably should have just left him then, honestly. But, you know, love is hard. Love is hard. Then Bojack has this idea to prank George Clooney, because I guess he's a big prankster and he's his like Oscar competition. He wants to, the prank is that he'll hit him with a bat. Like, yikes, Bojack. He's like literally losing his mind as these seasons go further and further. And then he kind of finds out that his publicist has been working for all of the sides, which I wonder if that is a thing that happens, as the same publicist promotes all of their campaigns. And that is pretty interesting, because they are from usually like the same publicity department. Like if you look at IMDb, almost everybody is from the same agency that's booking. It's, you know, it's kind of a small circle world, you know? But I thought it was pretty cool for Bojack to be like, no, I'm not going to, it's not fair if you work for the other competition. Like, I'm going to fire you. Forget it. Like, I mean, I feel like it was kind of self-sabotagey and a little bit of like actor brainy. Like, I don't feel like he knew entirely what was going on in the process, right? And kind of could mess himself up. Should have just like paid his dues. But that's the thing with like abusive mindset people. Like, they believe they deserve it now. And I think what was really interesting too about the abortion episode was how Princess Caroline was so jealous of Diane for being able to carry a baby, which she couldn't have, right? And the most interesting thing is, like, had Diane maybe offered it to Caroline, but it's hard because Princess Caroline hasn't like really spoken out about that's what she wants, right? It's like always been like her kind of secret wish to herself. And I don't even know. And still, it's the hard thing is like that's 9 months of Diane's life, going to doctor's appointments, making sure this life is okay, adjusting her lifestyle to be healthier or healthy given whatever the baby needs. Like, it is a lot of work. It's not just 9 months of sitting around being fat and fabulous and pregnant. Like, there is a lot of work in bringing a human life to term. Sorry to take the mystery out for you, and I get it. I don't think it was fair for Caroline to attack Diane for that jealousy, but I can understand of like, you know, having a different opinion about it and being like, this is a precious life and you're just going to throw it away. Like, and I would do anything for one, right? Like, it is that thing of like, it's like if somebody got booked in a network show and they were like, you know what, I don't want it, so I'm not going to take it, right? And it goes to somebody else and like, it's for me. I'm like, oh my God, I would take that, right? I would take a one-liner, right? Like, it's like, I don't understand saying no to any dream, you know? But if it's not somebody else's life, you know, you can't force it just because that's how you think it should be. And Caroline even hits that Diane is not good enough at her social media job to be too good for anything. And it's like awful. I think they do this all in front of the client too, which I think is like, oh, I would never try to have intimate team discussions in front of somebody I was trying to sell to. You know, they don't need to see whatever infrastructure our team needs to work on, right? Like, and if anything, if I was going to do it in front of a client, I would try to solve it as positively as possible because that's what I want my workplace to be associated with. I always love, like, they have because, you know, this whole series starts with Bojack trying to write a book and then hires Diane as the ghostwriter for the book, or the company does, because Bojack's not getting any movement on this book because it takes focus to write a book for sure. Oh yeah, for the abortion one, before I get into that, the abortion one, they like end up live taping the abortion and then like they pretend that this pop star has the baby and then she ends up actually getting pregnant and then keeps the baby, which is like one of the most wild twists ever. But I honestly really like that episode, and I usually don't like a lot of abortion episodes because I think they become very like either very conservative or very liberal, and for me, I'm like, I feel like abortion is just this like tangled black, you know, web of so much going into it. I still don't understand why people rave over Planned Parenthood when the legit founder was. But I know that Planned Parenthood is really nice, and I know it's really hard to find a doctor. But yeah, the fact that they were trying to erase our black people, it's just terrible. Really, really sad. But they end up, they do live abortion on TV. I don't even know. I wonder if that's ever been done. I doubt it. But anyway, so there's this like, as you know, Bojack, this whole series started because Bojack is trying to write a book. He doesn't do very well with it. And then they hired Diane as a ghostwriter because they're trying to basically keep Penguin Publishing afloat, which I love. It's an actual penguin. And it's sad, like it's crazy to think about, but like the paper industry is dying, and it's probably better for the environment overall. Like, how many trees were we killing to keep this paper industry alive, right? And it like is easy to read on your phone. I used to be like a big book person, and like my eyes might hurt more with technical strain, but honestly, my eyes would hurt with books sometimes. It's most about the text is so fucking small. But why did we decide font has to be the small? Why did we just not make font bigger? All over. I want to know why we decided font should be tiny. But either way, in terms of environmental impact, I don't know if being on your, like, using up electricity is worse for the environment, or if using up paper for books is worse for the environment. I would have to do deep carbon research on that, and I'm not that passionate about the environment. I'm a little bit passionate about it, but I'm not, like, too stressed out now. Probably once I cross more things off my list, I could get more educated, but right now I haven't had that itch to be super scratched. Yeah, the urge for that itch to be super scratched. And poor Mr. Peanut Butter, he is so selfish, but he is trying to understand. He really is trying to fight for Diane. He's just, just a dumb dog. Oh, I thought it was so messed up when Bojack sleeps with Todd's friend Emily, and I don't know if they were going to date. It seems like they wanted to. It seems like it could have happened, but I don't know. But Todd is also like asexual, like he doesn't want to have sex, and I don't know if I think he wants to have a relationship. And I don't think it would have worked with Emily anyway because she wanted to have sex. And obviously, Emily was kind of messed up because she was like trying to make Todd jealous. and like used Bojack as much as Bojack used her as an object, but either so. It's like, I don't think mutual usings, they shouldn't be good. And I honestly regret any time I feel like if there was any even feeling of mutual using for a person, because I know how I felt when I was used in that way. People aren't, sex toys. Like, you can't use and discard them, right? Like, it's a real emotional thing, and the science has been proven that you physically exchange energy with the person that you are having sex with. Like, it's, you want to pretend it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. It's a big deal. Sorry. I'm coming through with the truth right now. It's not going to change in being a big deal. And Bojack, like, he doesn't even try to solve this issue. Like, he doesn't even respect Todd enough to be honest with him and be like, you know what, it was a mistake. He lies to Todd. And I guess it's because he is trying to probably lie to protect Todd's feelings. And I think Emily also kind of asked, he kind of convinced Emily that was what they should do, because Emily was like, oh no, we should tell him, because I think she wanted to get to the confession part of like, is Todd going to say that he cares about her or not, which is also messed up. She could just ask him, right? Like, half the time too, some people do these crazy things hoping to get a response, and it's like, you could. I'm not saying that question is easy to bring up. I'm not saying that conversation is easy by any means, but might be less trouble to just ask, right? It might be less trouble to just ask instead of doing these ridiculous things in hopes that they will, help you out and just automatically read your mind and assume. It's also crazy that Bojack literally tells this whole story to the Gazette, the Los Angeles Gazette or whatever. And he's just like dumping out his whole story to people. I mean, they did ask him questions, but it's wild that he just told this whole story to a stranger. It's such a need for therapy, as I go and podcast. But to be fair, Bojack has money for therapy and I don't. It's like, I can spend that money on my career and get to where I'm going and work through self-help books myself, or I spend that money on my mental health and it may or may not work, because the process of finding a good therapist and doctor is a lot. I also don't know if I mentioned one of my other favorite quotes here, but it is the Wanda one, where it's like, when you see everything through rose glasses, red flags just look like red flags. And it's so good, because it's so true. And they kind of broke up because, Bojack was like, you saw who I really was, like, that he like couldn't keep up this mask. And I think that's the hard thing, is like, Bojack believes that he is his evil parts, and it's like, Bojack is not. He is the combination of both, right? If he could work on the things that are causing him problems, he would find his true self. And that's like the hardest thing that people, I mean, I was in that mindset for a while where it was just like, oh, I am my negative qualities. And it was like, actually, I don't have to be. And because I believed that, I was surrounding myself with people who also believed that. And it was hard. It was like, it was really like breaking out of hell is what it felt like. It felt like breaking out of this like trapped tunnel and coming into the light. And they say in this quote too, they're like, oh, when you see someone as they really are, it ruins them, is what Bojack says. And it's like, to me, that's usually when I really like them the best. Like, I love when I am like, okay, this person is authentic, right? And you can just tell. You can tell in your gut place. And it's so beautiful. And even in the show, they say, like, you have to want to change, which is so true. I think they could have, like, pounded it out more, but that's also, like, not the kind of show this is, It's not like a heavy-handed family drama with a moral and a message. Bojack, you kind of take away what you want to take away, which is why I wanted to do this review. And thank you so much if you're listening this far in. I know it's a long one. I love that Bojack's secretary at Murad, where you are secretariat, but it's on the highway. It's not good, but it's like such an abuser thing to think, oh, this is going to be the best idea, and I don't care if nobody else agrees, and I don't want to hear the logistics about why. Like, let's just rush and do my idea because I'm always right, even though there's been a history of when he's not right. Then the secretariat is like going to be blinding because it's literally a mirror in LA on the highway, and all it's seeing is like sky, and they think it's like too vague. But honestly, it would have been an interesting Oscar ad. Like, I think his idea was good. It just, it wasn't a billboard. He should have asked for more details. So then, and I think what was the biggest betrayal for me, honestly, is that even though Princess Caroline got discarded bunny agent who was messing around in his marriage, she chimes up with Kristen Chenoweth's character, which I love. Kristen Chenoweth does like the most amazing vocal work, and honestly, as an actress, she's her whole heart and soul into everything that she's in, and like she is such a talented, and I'm so glad that she's had the career that she has. I love every role. She just lights up the screen. Like honestly, Kristen Chenoweth stan over here. So they're trying to kind of pull a fast one in Princess Caroline and try to get Bojack for Pegasus, and it doesn't really work out because Bojack is just classic self-sabotaging, so much fun. But Sarah Lynn is busy doing drugs while driving, and they crash the car, and they're trying to get a new horsing around. They want to get Ethan around, and Ethan is like trying to get Bojack on board, obviously, because what is it without the horse? And he's kind of just pulls on that, like, you know, like the sitcom was like a home for them. But it's also like, it's hard because it's like, it's such a fine line in entertainment because it does feel like home, but it also like, it is work, you know, like there does have to be boundaries and responsibilities and commitment. And even homes itself, having a home takes work, right? It's not always easy to maintain balance in your family, and you usually have to work to have a home, right? Like, and Bojack even slept with like Ethan's mom, I guess, on the set of Horsing Around, which is like terrible, you know? And I wonder if that was even like a requirement, unfortunately, to get our son. Like, hoof, Bojack, how could you? And then Diane is all sketched out because she thinks that Mr. Peanut Butter told his brother about the abortion and that the brother is like kind of secretly shaming her for it, because I think she feels her own guilt about it, especially after her conversation with Princess Caroline. And obviously it's such a complicated issue. No one ever wants to have an abortion, right? It's just probably something she felt like she had to. But that's not what Mr. Peanut Butter's brother is struggling with. He's having a health issue, so he thinks that he's going to die, you know? And so it's more about his life in that way. Also, I thought it was always so weird that I always send this thing to my boyfriend, though, and I thought it was cute when I was first, like, falling in love with him and everything. I would send him the picture of Kelsey like just crushing on Todd's face and being like, which is funny because I think she's a lesbian, or she's definitely queer, but she like is just like impressed with Todd. She was like, I love his face, I just want to eat him up. You know, it's like, is it a desire to get to know him, or just like she just appreciates the awesomeness of Todd? Anyway, I loved it, and I just want to send it to all my friends, and any of you guys that are still listening. I just want to send you the like, I love this guy. He's got such a great face. At one point, too, Bojack is on, like, a show that is, like, rating women, which is, like... I mean, I guess, like, women are making... Hopefully they're making money from that, or at least... And so part of me can't blame it, because if a woman is making money, that then is feminism. But for Bojack, it's just, like, probably something you shouldn't do, given what you have already done to women in your lifespan. Well, this is a fictional character, and I'm legitimately upset, because it's real in real life. Bojack then, too, ends up dumping Princess Caroline as his agent, because she couldn't get him the role for Pegasus, and, like, I think also, like, publicists stroked Bojack's ego for Caroline, and it's probably honestly best that Caroline and Bojack's relationship in any source ends, because Bojack is not nice to Caroline. Caroline should not be getting all of his work, but it's hard because Caroline needs him to book money in her agency. Like, Bojack at this point is her biggest quiet because she went out to be a manager, inspired by the one bunny who was basically like messing around with her while he had a wife. And Bojack is so abusive. It's like she made one mistake, is like the one thing she couldn't get him. The one time she didn't do what he wanted, to no fault of her own. She was kind of like tricked by the other agent playing like a head game on her, which she knows, and that's why I think she hates Vanessa Gecko so much. But I thought it was so mean that he was like, he gave up on her when she's never given up on him, and like literally wasted so much of her life just letting him treat her like shit, and still went to bat and fought for him. It's just like, it's so hard. So hard. And then Princess Caroline calls Bojack on his shit, though, which I like, and which I kind of, I think maybe too, she feels like if I go out of Bojack's life, there's like nobody going to try to control him or like tell him what he's doing is wrong and steer and guide him. Like, she feels responsibility, I think, for this like loose cannon. And she accuses Bojack of wanting like a sex mommy that can try to teach him boundaries, right? Because he doesn't know any. And it's just like, whew. Oh my goodness. I mean, it's fun. I think it's real. I think that is what a lot of abusive people want. And like from my like super terrible abusive relationship, he wanted that for me. He wanted me to be a caretaker and a sex slave at the same time. And it was a lot. And Caroline also points out that she can say 9 nice things about Bojack and 1 mean thing. And Bojack will focus on the 1 mean thing. And it's crazy human minds do that. And he ends up like during this fight too, to make it more chaotic, ends up pissing off the chef of the restaurant that he owns. And the chef like quits, and there's like a food critic, but it's really only like a Tumblr blog person. But I don't know. They got check marks after their names on Twitter, I guess, I realized. And Caroline too, it's so interesting because she's like literally putting out fires at the restaurant because she's been putting out fires her whole life, and it's like some things just should burn. That's the thing. It's hard when you're a perfectionist. And then finally, Princess Caroline gets the guts to say, okay, I'm walking away, Bojack, right? You don't like me. You don't appreciate what I've done for you. I don't care. I'm over it. I'm done. And then, of course, she gets in the car and there's like, it has like a reaffirming action where it's like, go and turn the car around, Princess Caroline, right? And so she's like, crap. She feels like the universe is saying that she has to go back and help Bojack because that's the right thing to do. And so she goes and turns around, even though she can't trust Bojack. Bojack doesn't even drive sober, you guys. Like, this is, you know, I don't think I could be friends with Bojack. I don't care how rich. Or it would be just the shallowest friendship, and I don't know if I would like myself like that. So, and Caroline begs him, and she's like, please don't leave. She's like, I can turn all of this around. She's like, all I need is 6 months. And Bojack is like, nope, and ends pretty much their relationship of agent and client, and also friendship, honestly, because he doesn't care and he's got such a big head. Given that this is already 2 hours, sorry I talked so much about Bojack, but there's so much to dive into that I think is so worthy. I am going to end it now, and there will be a part 2, so stay tuned for that. Tell me what you liked, what you thought, what you agreed with, what was your favorite episode of Bojack, things that you realized about it. I'd love to talk about it. I think it's a really great show and sparks so much conversation. All right, have a good one. Make sure you guys please subscribe. Every follower and subscription that I have counts. All of my social media and acting stuff is down below. If you would like to book me for a project, feel free to get in touch with my agents or myself. And yeah, just let me know. Have a great one.